This Week in Startups is brought to you by eero, the world's first home mesh Wi-Fi system. For free overnight shipping, visit eero.com/twist. At checkout, select overnight shipping, then enter promo code TWIST. And TrackR. Life is too short to spend looking for your wallet and keys. Save that precious time and get TrackR. Go to thetrackr.com, enter promo code TWIST to get 20% off any order.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this week on the program, we're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges humanity faces. That is population growth and the growth of people who want to, in that population, eat protein. Protein is becoming incredibly popular in the world. Now, as Americans, or perhaps even Europeans, we take for granted that we get to have a nice piece of fish, steak, chicken, or pork with our meals. Other parts of the world do not have the luxury of massive amounts of animal protein, but as the world becomes homogenous and people around the world see on Instagram and TV and satellites what other people are eating, then you get the grand FOMO. And the FOMO is now, hey, if I'm somebody who's moving into the middle class in China or India, or even the upper middle class, or becoming rich, I want to eat one of those ribeyes that I see Jason posting on his Instagram. Or I want to have that nice Branzino that I see Kim Kardashian tweeting about, right? Well, what happens when 7 billion people, 10 billion people want to eat the Branzino and they want to eat the steak and they want the shrimp cocktail? What happens is one of two things. One, we deplete the ocean's supply of fish and our ocean is being quickly decimated. The next thing that happens is we build massive factory farms, which are cruel and certainly unusual in their construct in the history of humanity and the planet. And they are one of the leading causes of global warming, as well as cruelty to animals who are being held in conditions that 100 years from now, I believe, will be looked at as one of the great tragedies in the history of humanity. Well, who's going to solve this problem? Governments? Haha. Universities? No. The biggest problems we face as a species are going to be solved by people like my guest, entrepreneurs, founders. My name is Jason Calacanis. I'm the host of this program, This Week in Startups. And what I do is I invest in founders who want to solve the world's biggest problems. If you want to hear about how I do it, read the book Angel. Read the thousands of reviews of this amazing product that I've created, angelthebook.com. Read it. It will change your life, and it'll make you laugh. I'm being slightly facetious. But without money, a lot of these startups cannot go solve those problems. They need believers. So if you're a rich individual and you've got money just parked in Vanguard funds or bonds or real estate, hey, stop being so cheap. Take 10% of your net worth, 5% of your net worth as a rich individual and invest it in startups. That's my advice. Be part of the solution, not the problem. My guest today is Mike Selden. Mike is the co-founder and CEO of Finless Foods. And he's been working on that, I believe, since just last year, 2016. Welcome to the program, Mike Selden.
Thanks so much for having me, Jason.
You heard my little preamble there.
Thanks for that.
How accurate is my handicapping of the problem humanity faces right now? And tell us how you plan to solve it with Finless Foods.
It's accurate. More and more people are really wanting to eat animal protein. And as people rise up into the middle class and rise up into upper class in around the world, they're trying to really eat a more nutritious diet and eat things that are better for them. And a lot of what they see is that they see that meat is high in protein and is high in a lot of nutrients that is really helpful, both in early development for children and also just for general nutrition as an adult. And so, you know, what you said is totally accurate about land animals. And what I want to add about fish specifically is that we are unable to increase production of fish from wild-caught sources from where it is. So fish production has been very stagnant for decades at this point because the world is only so big and the oceans can only support so much fish being taken out of it. Right now, about 50% of fisheries are completely exploited, and there's no way to get more fish from them. On top of that, you have somewhere between 20 and 30% that are overexploited, in collapse, or trying to recover, and so those really can't be touched at all at this point.
So that leaves 20%.
Exactly.
Those are the ones that we could marginally improve on fishing.
We can, and sometimes we can, but a lot of the times these are things that are in areas like that are politically contested, like the Senkaku Islands, or they're in places with extreme. Those are those fishing islands between China and Japan, and it's sort of
yes, those are contentious little islands.
And people think that China and Japan are trying to contend between those two for land, but like no one lives on those. The point is the fishing and the shipping lanes, basically.
Yes.
So stuff like that.
They're barely islands. They're kind of rocks. With buildings on them.
Yep.
That I think actually one of the James Bond movies.
Oh, really?
Has this, one of the islands there is like, they basically put on top of these rocks a 5 or 6 story building. So it's this bizarre island that looks like a James Bond villain. So they literally used it for a James Bond film. But those islands are one of the few contested waters that we cannot get fish from. You left out fish farms.
I was about to get into that.
Let's get into that for a second, because I have heard these are amazing, sustainable, wonderful feats of technology and science and humanity's creativity. And I've also heard that they're destroying the ocean. Which is true, or are both true? Explain to us.
It's really they're solving one problem but creating a different set of problems. With these aquaculture facilities, we can increase fish production, which is great, and we can drop the cost of fish, which is great because fish is generally a very healthy protein. It's got omega-3, omega-6, DHA. It's good for people, and they like eating it. So it's great that we can increase production using aquaculture. That said, some fish actually can't be aquacultured yet, and I can talk about that if you want. But basically, the problem that aquaculture creates is that when you have these fish in such a small environment, you're looking at something like a CAFO, like an industrial agriculture operation on land. It's going to require fungicides, pesticides, herbicides, because these animals aren't meant to be kept in such close conditions. And so the biology of that sort of messes itself up, and it creates a system where disease is easy to spread, where fungus is easy to spread, and this decreases yield of the fish if you're a farmer. So they use these fungicides, pesticides, and herbicides, and like on land, these really don't affect human health. They don't really get into your food in quantities that are high enough for it to affect you, but it does leach into the surrounding environment and destroy the environment around the aquaculture facilities, which are usually just nets in the ocean itself.
Interesting. So we're going to get to Finless Foods in a minute and your solution to making mock or perhaps real fish. I guess we'll have to just define exactly what we call this thing.
We call it clean fish is what we try and say.
Clean fish. We're going to talk about this. And I'm going to, just teaser, I'm going to actually eat some Finless Foods product in a moment. And I will give you my honest assessment of it. The issue with the fish in a pen is, if I can summarize, they're going to make poo-poo.
Yeah.
And that will create bacteria. And in that density, that will create disease because they're literally, fish are swimming in poo-poo all the time.
Yep.
But not in close quarters, so it dissipates.
Right.
You put enough of them together, you put enough fecal matter together, whether it's cows or fish, you introduce problems. And in, I think, the cow case and pigs and chickens, they give antibiotics to keep them from getting sick from the density of fecal material. In fish, they just destroy the area around them, or do the other fish just look at it and say, oh, this is great for it? Wouldn't, in the fish world, a bunch of excess poo-poo be good and be nutrients, or is it the density creates the same problem on land as meats?
It's like all things in science, it's complicated. It very much depends on what type of aquaculture facility you're talking about.
Okay.
I do know that in America, for our aquaculture, we do not use antibiotics. So I think that's a factor of us having a little bit more spread out facility. But I know that in other countries, like especially in Southeast Asia, it's very common. There are high levels of antibiotics being used in the aquaculture facility. And so that also is bad for a number of reasons. How
do they deploy? I mean, I understand with cows, they would give them shots or they would inject them or perhaps put it in food. I'm not sure. What producer Jackie can look that up. But in fish, how do you actually deploy this kind of antibiotic stuff? Did you just dump it in the water? Because you're not going to pick out 1,000 fish and give them injections, or maybe you put it in their food. I don't know.
I'll be honest, I actually don't know.
I don't know the deployment of this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a biochemist. I work with cells and things on the smaller than cellular level. So I don't know the whole organism as well.
So give us your briefly, in a couple of sentences, your qualification, what brings you to the point of founding a company like Finless Foods, which is something you can go take a look at are you finlessfoods.com?
We are.
And you can follow them on the Twitter, Finless, Finless Foods. So tell us, how does Mike Selden come to this Finless Foods adventure?
Yeah, so my background is in biochemistry and molecular biology. I did work in evolutionary biomechanics at the mantis shrimp. I also worked in fungal genomics and epigenetics, computational genomics. And I went to what is a traditionally agricultural school, UMass Amherst over in Western Massachusetts. And so even if while there you're studying something like biochemistry, it's definitely through the lens of agriculture. And so my research into fungal genomics was really to prevent this thing called Panama disease, which in the 1950s wiped out all the bananas on the planet. The banana we eat now is actually a different plant entirely. And this fungus that wiped out the bananas is still out there. And so we were trying to find a way to mitigate that. So from that as a background, I ended up, coming to my co-founder, my now co-founder and CSO, Brian Roiris, who I also met in that program.
Chief scientist?
Yep, chief science officer. We met 6 years ago, and then sometime last year, actually, in about July, I just came to them with this idea. I was thinking about, agriculture, and agriculture is a system of inputs and outputs, and, you want to maximize your outputs and minimize your inputs. And so these animals, they're doing things that we don't need them to do. Animals, in terms of fish, they move around. And in terms of all animals, I mean, they blink, they have heartbeats, they have like organs that do all sorts of things that we don't need. And those are things that require energy that we're putting in. And so I was thinking, well, what if we cut out all this excess output and just concentrate on the output that we want? What if we just grew meat and nothing else? And so in coming to Brian, whose background is much more in cellular biology, we were both living in New York at the time. I was working at Mount Sinai Icahn School of Medicine, doing high-throughput cancer screening. He was working at Weill Cornell Medical College, actually working in the exact same cancer system by coincidence. And his research was focused in something called primary cell culture, which is extremely important for what we do. It's taking cells from an organism, bringing them out of that organism, and culturing them up in a lab setting.
So getting a sample and then replicating the sample. When we get back from this quick break, I am going to eat a piece of Finless Foods, which is becoming close to available. You have a prototype, which I will eat. Nothing's going to happen to me by eating this prototype. You've guaranteed that.
We can only hope.
Okay, because we're not sequencing some genomes in here and it's going to turn me into Aquaman, is it? Because that'd be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool. I can't promise you'll be Aquaman, but I think it'll still be delicious.
And when we get back, I'm going to taste it. And then I have a very important question as a person who loves sushi, is my favorite food. I want to know what impact this will have on sashimi and sushi and Toro grade, the greatest foods, in my estimation, that one can consume, or amongst them. Will you be able to replace the $11 per piece of Toro that one might eat at Nobu when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about eero. Yes, E-E-R-O, eero. They are the greatest solution for putting Wi-Fi into your home, your office, your apartment, your dorm room, whatever. It is amazing how well it works, because we all know the single router model is not working in a heavy bandwidth world. It's just simple physics. Obviously, light waves are just like Wi-Fi waves. They don't go through walls, and that's a problem. And you get into these big fights in your house. Why isn't the Wi-Fi working? Reboot the router. You just have the wrong system. You need to chuck it, get rid of that single router model, and go to the eero model. And that's the distributed system that will work. This is what offices have had for years, and that's why it works so well in your office. But it's very expensive. Until now, eero is enterprise-grade Wi-Fi that you can install in your home in just a few minutes using the app on iOS or Android. And this is a key issue. It is so easy to install this new system that you're going to just pop out your phone, and it's quick, it's easy, and it's painless. With the addition of a third 5 gigahertz radio. This is the 5G that you hear about. That 5 gigahertz radio. The second generation Eero is now tri-band. It's got 3 bands it's rocking, and it's 2 times as fast as its predecessor. It lets your customers do more simultaneously in every room of the house. All of those customers, your kids, your wife, your husband, everybody in the house is complaining about the Wi-Fi right now. I know you're going through this because I went through it until I got Eero. And it is going to be reliable. In addition, they have the new Thread radio. Eero can connect to low-power devices such as your locks and your doorbells and other sensors. And I got all that at my house too. I mean, Wi-Fi is getting pounded. So it connects over Ethernet wirelessly and easily, and the Thread radio is great for low-powered devices. Okay, they've got great customer support. You know that. You can call and you can get a Wi-Fi expert on the phone within 30 seconds. I installed it. It works. It's simple. It's easy. It's effortless. So here's your offer. Get free overnight shipping. That's right. In the US and Canada, you can get it overnight. Visit eero.com and check out. When you're checking out, use that promo code TWIST, and you'll get the overnight shipping. That means if you're listening to this right now, tomorrow you could solve your Wi-Fi problems. Just go to eero.com and use the promo code TWIST, TWIST, and you will get that free shipping. All right, thanks, Eero, for making a great product and for supporting independent media. Okay, well, let's get back to the episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. You can find us on Twitter at TWI Startups. Same handle on Instagram, TWI Startups. And you can find me, your host, at Jason on Instagram and at Jason on Twitter. Please buy the book. Write a review. Tell me what you think about it. It's angelthebook.com. And if enough of you write reviews, when I hit 1,000 reviews on Amazon, I am going to publish the sequel to Angel. And you will hear about that book when you get 1,000 reviews. And I think we have like 300 reviews. So there's a ways to go. But your reward is you guys put 1,000 reviews on Amazon. That, every time I see one of those, it really gets my ego going. I read it, every detail of it. I'm obsessive. And so keep the reviews coming. It really does mean a lot to me as an author and motivates me. Okay, Mike, I'm going to take a bite of this. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I may do a little shtick in between. Don't get worried. That's my job as host. I'm not going to show it because it's proprietary technology. We don't want people to see it. Can't give anything. But what am I going to be eating in a moment?
You're eating Branzino. So that's European sea bass. And this is European sea bass grown without any sort of contaminants that you'd find in the ocean, without any sort of...
no mercury.
No mercury, no plastic, none of the antibiotics use that you'd find in aquaculture in a lot of countries, no added growth hormones, and it was also made without cruelty. So we didn't have to kill a fish in order to make this for you.
I'm not too concerned about killing fish. The cows I worry about, but the fish I don't worry about as much.
Well, then we don't have to go through any sort of problematic fishing.
Let me ask you that question. On an ethical basis, do you care if somebody eats a fish and kills it?
I would rather less fish be killed and eaten.
Let me ask you this. If I caught a fish and killed it in front of you, would you feel sad for the fish? Would you feel like broken up? Would you cry? Would you be upset at me if having witnessed a fish being gutted and eaten?
Crying is extreme, and I would not be upset at you. Okay. I don't really have any vegan friends, so I see people eat meat all the time. In fact...
But let me ask you the same question. If you saw me slaughter a pig or a cow, would you be upset? I would be very shaken.
I would wonder what situation we'd find ourselves in which we're doing that. Like, why are we slaughtering a cow together? But I mean...
I have a farm. I have a farm down in Half Moon Bay, and you're over, and I said, hey, we're going to have a pig, and we're going to have a pig roast, and you come, and you didn't know it, but I said, hey, I'm going to slaughter the pig. You want to see it? And I cut the pig's throat in front of you. You'd be disturbed.
I went to an agricultural college. I saw plenty of stuff going on. I mean, I'm kind of used to it.
Okay. Very cool. So this is not an ethical killing of beings to eat them issue for you.
It is
as much as
I think the environmental aspect is more important. And I'm very much a utilitarian. I think I think one of the interesting things is people get super caught up about you went fishing and killed a fish, right? But that fish had a pretty good life in the ocean. Whereas anybody who just sits here and eats a hamburger, that cow went through a life of torture.
That's the interesting thing. See, we have a very interesting moral debate that we're unwilling to have And this is one of the problems I find in humanity today and the dialogue we find ourselves in. People don't want to have a candid dialogue because we're so polarized on I'm vegan, I'm a hunter. But putting it all aside, objectively, cows in factory farms are literally being tortured.
Yeah. I think people who hunt or fish, they're getting their meat with the least amount of animal cruelty that you possibly can. I think that those are like we talk about what we're doing, it's to replace industrial agriculture. And people ask me all the time, like, will there still be fishing? And I say, you do whatever you want.
Sure.
Go out and fish. You have a boat, you want to rent a boat, go nuts. Like, that sounds great. It's the industrial aspect. For me, it's like a numbers game, right? Like, I don't like animal cruelty. Industrial agriculture does this on a massive scale. If we can get rid of that,
99 and then 509% of the cruelty.
Yep.
And the fisherman or the hunter are some minuscule contributor to that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take a bite of this. You're going to tell me how close are you, and I want you to give me a specific year that you think you would set the betting line. You understand gambling? There's a betting line. And one might pick the over or the under. Mm-hmm. So what that means is I say, hey, I think the combined score of this game between the Giants and the 49ers will be 50. Mm-hmm. You want the over or the under? Do you think there'll be over 7 touchdowns, under 7, over 50 points, under 50 points? Mm-hmm. So setting the line means you're trying to find that really good middle point.
Right.
So I want you to set a line for me of when you think yourselves at Finless Foods, which you can see at finlessfoods.com, or another competitor, somebody in the market, will be able to produce a piece of specifically Toro, O-Toro, or Cho-Toro. O-Toro is the top, Cho-Toro is the second, Toro is the regular, and then you have tuna for civilians. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about the elite Toro, O-Toro, Cho-Toro with the fatty from the belly of the tuna. When will you or somebody else be able to fool a high-end sushi eater? And now I'm going to go take a bite of my...
go for it.
Of my Branzino. Okay. I'm off camera. I'm trying it.
While he's doing that, we plan on being on market at the end of 2019. That said, this technology is really broken up into two pieces. There is growing these cells out in a way that is efficient and inexpensive, and then there is actually getting them to have the same structure and texture of real meat. So these first products will be unstructured in 2019. Mm-hmm. We plan on having things that are really sashimi in 2021, and I'd say we can get to really the quality that will convince people definitely by 2025. That's what I would say is my betting line.
2025. So you'd either take the under or the over. You'd have a hard time picking
for O-Toro specifically, because that's what I'm picking. Yeah, O-Toro specifically, I'd say 2025 would be the number. So
in less than a decade, human beings could go to a sushi bar, and you're doing this every day, so you're amongst the most informed people in the space. We could go to a sushi bar and eat the highest grade and not know the difference. Mm-hmm. You believe that in your heart?
I do.
I don't disagree. Where do you think the meat industry is at in terms of, if we were to take the equivalent, which would be a piece of Kobe or Miyazaki,
Isn't that a director?
Wagyu. Miyazaki is a province in Japan that's kind of like our San Diego, but they have meat from Miyazaki they're awfully proud of. Kobe is another place where they have meat they're very proud of, and Wagyu is another.
Okay.
I don't know if Wagyu is actually a province or town or actually just a name, but those are the three would be like high-end meat. You could think about high-end
beef.
High-end beef. What do you think? How far off do you think they are? Is it similar trajectories or not?
It's a similar trajectory. It's hard because I'm not working in beef specifically, but they have a few more problems they have to get over than we do. Beef is particularly hard to work with. So if anyone is interested in looking up the science on this, there's this great paper called The Problem with Primary Stem Cell Culture in Domestic Ungulates. And basically it talks about this specific problem that domestic ungulate cells have. And a domestic ungulate is a 4-legged farmed animal. So cow, pig, goat, sheep, stuff
ungulate
like that.
is the word for a 4-legged animal.
Yeah, for a 4-legged farmed animal. I don't know exactly where the line is drawn.
So a deer might not be an ungulate.
I'm not sure if a deer is an ungulate, to be honest.
I learned a new word today. That's good.
There you go. And have fun using it. I don't know how many people know it, but basically it has its own unique problems. So these cells sort of clump together in a weird way and deny each other nutrients in a way that, like, say, chicken or duck or fish don't.
Got it.
And so I think beef has its own unique problems, but then again, I'm not working in beef. Maybe somebody has found a way around this. You should talk to Dr. Mark Post. He's really the beef guy.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Where does he work?
He's out of Maastricht University in the Netherlands.
Interesting. In the Netherlands.
Yeah.
All right.
So what'd you think?
I'm going to use ungulate in a sentence.
Go for it.
Oh, Don't treat me like I'm some ungulate over here. See how I did that, Jackie? Jackie's like, I don't think that was a very good sentence. I ate the Branzino. Here's exactly what I would tell you. It was a small portion, so I can't give I ate an entire plate of it experience, but given the fact that I ate a small, half a fork, tiniest of a forkful of it, I would say if you were to put it side by side, I might be able to tell the difference that the Branzino might be fattier or richer, but I don't know because that might be the sauce and the olive oil and the butter and the cooking preparation. So
this is raw.
This is raw. So I'm like, on a palate basis, raw versus raw, I don't think I would tell the difference. It tasted like fish. It tasted like Branzino. It was very subtle. Very subtle. But I think that most people don't understand how subtle fish actually is. And Branzino is a subtle fish until cooked. It's very analogous, a Branzino, to a dory, a John Dory or something like that has not a lot of flavor until you put flavor on. Is that right?
Yeah, before we were actually doing carp, which has a bit of a stronger flavor as far as I can tell, but most people don't know what carp tastes like. And so they were like, it's good, but I don't know what to compare it to. And so Branzino people have been like, it's less oily? Intense. Yeah, it's less oily. It's also less intense, but they actually can compare it to a thing that they've had.
Less fishy.
It's not a very fishy thing. I mean, that's what's interesting about seafood in general. It's not actually a very strong taste a lot of the time.
That's very true. Unless you're in the mackerel category, where mackerel is a very strong flavored fish. And that's why people who are Japanese and some other cultures that really eat this fish a lot, they very much enjoy mackerel. That's considered a great fish to eat. Koreans as well. Americans hate mackerel.
Yeah.
They're like, it's too fishy. It's like,
We're not
you're
fans.
eating fish. I love a good mackerel.
I grew up Jewish, so all the fish was very, very salty. And
there you go. You had
heavily
pickled
salted.
herring.
Yeah. Pickled herring and lox were very big.
Lox of salmon, very nice.
Yep.
So are you starting with the Mediterranean whitefish, or can you do salmon? Because salmon also seems like a very complex fish to me. I don't know if that's correct or not. Are there complexities to different types of fish that will make ones harder than the other for you?
As far as we can tell right now, not yet. It doesn't seem like there's anything that makes one more difficult than the other, but there are things that we have to consider. So one of the things for us is that this is very much an environmental mission, and salmon is actually one of the most efficient aquacultured fish that exists.
It is, isn't it?
It's 1.8 pounds of feed to 1 pound of meat, which is the most efficient as far as I know that we do. And it's aquacultured very thoroughly. So our initial line of products we want to produce is Bluefin tuna, and part of the reason for that is it can't be aquacultured.
And it's overfished.
It's on an off the threatened species
for
list.
For some reason, it's become a delicacy. But the irony is people didn't used to like tuna.
Not a lot of people know that.
I read a quick.
I know. No, it's cool.
You're on this week. It turns out tuna was a fish that people didn't like.
Yeah.
And it's a very large fish, and it's a deep sea fish. It's hard to get. And all of a sudden, extremely fast.
Yeah.
This is not an easy fish to fish, number one. It's impossible to grow.
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll be able to close the life cycle, but for now they're having trouble. There's a few researchers in Japan that are getting very, very close, it looks like, but it's not yet.
Aquaculturing fish.
Yeah, aquaculturing bluefin tuna, but it doesn't, it's commercializable, but it's very expensive so far.
It's expensive because they need a lot of space and a lot of care to do it, or do you know? It's interesting.
I actually don't know, but I think it's a secret. It's I don't think they want to tell people.
Gotcha. So how, for people who are not briefed on the science, including present company, how do you do what you do? How does this actually work? Are you a Frankenstein? Are you creating a monster? Are you using a 3D printer? Are you putting electricity into a petri dish and a fish comes out? Take us through how this works so a 5 or 7-year-old can understand it.
Yeah, so
when we get back on This Week in Startups. Sorry, I want to get this last break in. Okay, that was a hanger. It was my fault. I put the hanger out there and I let it hang just a little too much. Hey, let's hear from our great partners. Hey, everybody, let me take a minute to tell you about TrackR. That's TrackR. TrackR is amazing. Anybody who thinks the hunt is a thrill is wrong. It's not thrilling to hunt for your lost keys or your phone. Trust me, I know this. Life is supposed to be a journey of discovery, of the big, meaningful things. Love, purpose, experience, not trying to find those keys. So what I did is I put trackers on all of my Tesla keys, and when we lose one, I just pop out the app and I can find it. 8 years ago, TrackR changed everything with the release of their first tracking device, and now they've done it all over again with the TrackR Pixel, Pixel. It is amazing. You will never worry about losing things again. It is the lightest Bluetooth tracking device on the market. I am telling you, it's super light. I forget that I have them on all my keychains, and I forget that I put them on my wife's phone, but when we lose those Tesla keys, all of a sudden I pop open the app and I find them, and it starts, the siren goes off, whoop, 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 and I find the Tesla keys in my wife's bag or in my jacket pocket. I'm not blaming my wife for losing the keys every time. Sometimes they're in my jacket pocket or in my briefcase. It happens. And if you lose your phone, you can press the TrackR Pixel and it does a reverse lookup and your phone rings, even if it's on silent. Yes, that's right. TrackR will help you find your phone or find your keys or find your wallet or your backpack, whatever you lose, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose. Please go try TrackR. It is amazing. I am using it literally every week because that's how often we lose one of these keys. And losing the Tesla keys, the fob, I'm sure you've lost a fob before. Not only is it arduous, it can be expensive. They cost over $100, sometimes $200 for these fobs. When I had the Mercedes, it was ridiculous. They were just price gouging with those fobs. So here is your call to action. Go to thetrackr.com/twist. That URL once more, thetrackr, one word, .com/twist, and you will get 20% off any order. Go ahead and visit thetrackr.com/twist for 20% off. You will love it, and you get a money back guarantee. Nothing to worry about. Go ahead and give it a shot. You will love it. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. If you would like to sign up for our email list, go to thisweekinstartups.com and you will get secret invites to live episodes of This Week in Startups. We built a studio here in San Francisco, and we plan on having a live audience of 25 people in the future watching the program, coming by, having a slice of pizza, maybe a little Branzino from Finless, a little sashimi, who knows, depends on when you come by. But we're going to have live episodes here, and you're going to be able to come and sit in the studio audience and go ahead and ask questions, right? We'll have to take a couple of studio questions, and you'll be able to scream and yell just like you're on The Price is Right. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to just hang out and listen to a great episode and network. And that's coming in 2018 from thisweekinstartups.com. Go to thisweekinstartups.com and sign up for the email. My guest today is Mike Selden, and he is Mike Selden FF on the Twitter. You can follow him. You active on the Twitter, Mike?
Oh, yeah. I'm all over the Twitter.
You're all over the Twitter. You're not like going to be talking about Trump all day, are you?
I try not to talk about Trump as much as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I think anybody who can make great fish from Mar-a-Lago will serve it as long as it's world class, because we only have the finest fish at Mar-a-Lago. All right,
we only produce the finest fish, so.
Finless fish, Finless Foods.
Incredible. Just good people on both sides. Not really, actually, dude. On the other side is the Ku Klux Klan. Not exactly. Not on both sides. Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. There were Nazis and the Alliance. Both sides, some good people.
We always have to look at both sides.
We always have to look. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. Steven Spielberg made it pretty clear. Mm-hmm. Nazis, no good.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny now they put out that new Wolfenstein game, and Wolfenstein's like a game that's been around forever, and it's always been about killing Nazis. And now it's controversial that a game is about killing Nazis, and it's like,
What's the world come to?
Way to make it political. It's like, I don't think this is political. I think you can kill Nazis.
Kind of like the most evil manifestation of humanity ever captured and replicated in Star Wars as stormtroopers,
right?
And every other medium. We do not have to have this discussion of if Nazis were evil.
If it's bad in StarArs, it has to be bad in real life.
Exactly. These were stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Spielberg got it. Wolfenstein got it.
Yep. And hopefully the country will eventually
Raiders of the Lost Ark got it. Nazis equal bad.
Yeah. Not a fan.
We're going to get off the political tip. I'm sorry. Anyway. Now I'm going to get about 50 tweets. You have to understand there's good people on both sides. Now, when I left you, I was trying to understand exactly how Finless Foods does this magic, this dark art. I know that there are some people taking plants, ripping them apart, Beyond Meat. I've had that. Yep. And Beyond Meat, hey, listen, that's working pretty good for chicken.
It's good stuff.
But it's kind of like they're taking soy proteins or whatever it is. They shred it and they reconstitute it. And it's kind of I don't want to say it's not hard science, but it's certainly not the hardest science. I think it would be fair to say. You're kind of laughing at them. You're like, I laugh at Beyond. No, but Beyond Foods
food
is not.
science is so difficult. I mean, like, you know, it's funny because people talk to us and they're like, well, you know, the science isn't proven in your field. And I'm like, well, we have a very set series of things we have to accomplish. But with food science, it's like a wide open palette. Like there's so much to do.
Yes.
I don't even know where to go with it at all. I've been trained in some material science back from when I was like much younger. And that was wildly difficult. So I have a lot of respect for like Beyond Foods and Impossible Foods.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's cool
I
stuff.
haven't had that Impossible Burger yet. Have you had it?
It's good. You can get it like 2 blocks from here. You know that?
Oh, really? Is a place serving it?
Yeah. There's Umami Burger over that way. And then there's...
Oh, a Mommy Burger has it?
Yeah, and there's a place that starts with a C, but the best place in the city that I've found is a place, I'm totally going to butcher this. It's like Jardinier, something like that.
Jardinier. Okay, we'll look at that.
Starts with a J, ends in the...
I know it, Jardinier. I think I know. It's like a French joint, and they are serving the Impossible Burger.
It's so good. I think there's the best I've had.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And when I talked to them the last time I talked to them, it's a bloody burger. Like when you bite it, you get a little blood.
Yeah.
Which is very fascinating when you think about it. Like most people would not say the part of the hamburger they like is that it's bloody. Yet the people who are making the replacement are self-aware enough to know that if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't taste good. If it doesn't have that drenchy, bloody kind of thing.
It meat's got blood in it. I mean, you want it to be as realistic as possible. And so they've really nailed that. I mean, I haven't had meat in too long, so I'm a bad person to ask, but other people say, you know, it's very realistic. I love it. I'm going to
have one. I'm going to make a point of having one.
Go for it.
All right. Now, when you're making the fish, you're not taking soybeans or something like that or some base protein and reconstituting it in some technical way. What are you doing?
Yeah, so no soy involved in our process. What we're doing is we find high quality fish stocks. So this is a real fish, and we find basically the best and most high quality fish we possibly can. We take a small sample from that, about like this big, you know, about the size of like maybe a dime. I know we're on a podcast, so about the size of a dime. And from there, we isolate just the cells that we're looking for. So we're looking for cells that can grow out very, very quickly and have the capability to differentiate. That means turn into the muscle, fat, and connective tissue that people actually want to eat. And so these first cells, we're calling them progenitor cells. They're just the cells we start off with. We grow them out in large quantity in a bioreactor. So it'll look a lot like a brewery, like where you can get beer. And from there, we then...
A bioreactor is a device, a physical device.
Yep. It's a lot like a fermenter. It's just basically a big tank with a propeller, which inside of a tank is technically called an impeller, but whatever. An impeller inside of it that just sort of moves things around.
Impeller moves it around.
Yep.
Creates like some sort of...
current
to create a reaction.
Yeah, it's just to make the cells that make sure that they actually are all eating all the nutrients that we have in there. So we have a nutrient bath in there. It's proteins, salts, and sugars. The salts and sugars are the exact same stuff that you're already eating, and the proteins are things that we are replicating from the inside of a fish. So they are, you know, on
now,
a very...
How is a protein replicated? What's that process? So you're dumping a cup of protein in there, essentially. Yeah. How do you replicate a protein?
So what we're doing is we are looking at basically what goes on inside of a fish, because these cells get these proteins, and these proteins signal them to divide. They signal them to grow into more cells. And so we're finding the exact DNA in the fish that produces those proteins. We're taking that DNA and then we're putting it into yeast or a microbe like yeast, and then having that microbe produce this protein for us.
So the yeast will then make this DNA split and grow?
The yeast makes these proteins. The yeast is like a little factory that produces these proteins, and then we feed the proteins over to the cells. And so it's the same process that we use in order to make insulin for diabetics, or the same process. It's very similar to how beer is brewed, honestly. I mean, beer is yeast that's producing an output. And so we're doing that. We're just putting DNA into the yeast and making it into our little factory that can produce things for us. It's also like Impossible Burger. They're doing this with their heme protein. That's how they produce that.
Got it. And then how does it become flaky and pressed into a fish? Or is that not on the agenda right now? It's just going to be like essentially chopped up fish. How does it become fish texture like? I wonder.
Right now, we're very much focused on just getting these cells to be as efficient and as good tasting as we possibly can. There's a lot of different avenues to be explored in terms of giving it that real texture, which is why we have basically our timeline for 2019, putting out fish as an ingredient and as an unstructured product. And then for 2021, something that's more structured.
So you'll be able to give a chef fish that they can then mix into a stew or a crab cake or something like that.
Our prototype in September were fish croquettes that were about 30% fish. And
Amazing.
so, just using it as an ingredient.
That video was pretty compelling.
Oh, cool.
People liked it, yeah?
Yeah, people, it was fun. We had like a bunch of our friends get together in this kitchen in Mission Bay. It's this place called Left Coast Catering. And we had a really great chef basically cook this up for us. And it was fun, to get all of our friends to sort of come around and eat the fish together.
Here it is. I'll pull it up. I see people eating the fish right now.
Because it is actual fish. I did notice.
And it looks like they're eating some sort of a croquette or crab cake.
Mercury in it.
It has no mercury in it.
Antibiotics that are rampant.
People seem happy.
Yeah.
People love fish cakes.
Yeah.
I was always a huge fish cake. I'm from Brooklyn in Bay Ridge. We had a lot of Swedish delis. They specialized in these fish cakes that they would make. My grandmother would make them too. So you can make these great fish cakes and good enough, right? Good enough starting point.
Yep, we're looking at all sorts of things. There's, fish sauce, fish paste, fish cakes, fish croquettes. We're looking at surimi as a really good option.
What's that?
So surimi is this old Japanese art of fish processing. It's a mixture. So it's fish, gluten, starch, water, and a binding agent, and which is usually egg, but we're working on non-animal alternatives to that. There's a lot of options. And so what's great about surimi is it's incredibly versatile. It's
surimi.
surimi. It's really versatile. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. And
this is not mock crab meat, is it, that they put in those rolls?
So in America, that is the only surimi that we really consume, but that is just the lowest of the low. There's a lot of high quality surimi in Japanese restaurants. It's part of this new molecular gastronomy movement in Japan, and it's actually become very popular in high-end restaurants. It doesn't look like or taste like those crab rolls.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of production.
I always found that crab meat, mock crab meat, which is, I think, intended to look like king crab.
Yep.
So they make it really red, and then they make it sort of have that stringy, cheesy kind of a feel to it. But I always found that disgusting tasting. But you're saying that there is a trend of this surimi, high-end molecular gastronomy, the science of food. Restaurants in Japan are making this, huh?
It's really cool, and there's a lot of there's so many possibilities with it. I mean, I've seen there's like surimi sausage, there's surimi things for salad, surimi balls for pasta, surimi chunks for soup. I've seen surimi pancakes. I've never had that.
Yeah.
But there's just a million different things you can do with it, and so we're really excited by the possibility of creating some stuff that people have never even seen before. Things that are really healthy fish protein that tastes really great and is in this new form that nobody's ever seen before. So.
Yeah, and in a way, if you think about tempeh or tofu, people, that was like this weird 70s, what is this exactly? And now people can buy bricks of it in 5 different varieties or 10 different varieties at Whole Foods, or even more, pedestrian outlet that allow them to make all kinds of different dishes.
Yeah. And just like tofu, it's an old food making art that we've sort of imported from Asia.
Yeah. Fascinating, actually. Yeah. So you could make some sort of a brick that could be grilled or sauteed, put a little sauce on it, or slice it up and put it on top of a salad that could give you protein, fish flavor. Probably you'd control some of the calories. And can you actually determine how much protein is in this and make items that would be very high in protein but very low in calorie? Or lower in calorie, higher in protein?
We have a lot more control over that than you would in any sort of aquaculture or wild-caught setting, because they're limited by the biology of a fish. And whatever inputs and outputs they give it, they still have this machinery of a fish that they have to contend with. Whereas with us, we can get down on a really minute level and really change things on a cellular level. It's like, say you have like a Lego helicopter or whatever, and you have to use the Lego helicopter to do whatever you want, or break it down into the constituent Legos and then just use those individually to make something more interesting. So we have a lot more control over what's going on. And so, we can really change the protein to calorie ratio. We can change the levels of nutrients in what's going on. We want to create really personalized and designer food at some point. I'm excited by the possibility of this. Do you want the fattiest toro you can possibly imagine? We can do that. Do you want completely lean fish with no fat for some sort of specialized cooking purpose? We can do that. Yeah. Because we have this control on a cellular level.
This would be very interesting, because if you think about a company like McDonald's, which started out with, the Kroc brothers doing something, what they felt was virtuous. They were going to make it just a nice hamburger, easy, good meal. And then factory farming starts. They try to make food for the dollar menu, but the dollar menu then has shifted us towards foods that, let's face it, have to be of very low quality factory farming. We now, because of technology, could actually be moving to a world where instead of the cheaper food being the worst food, science could make food that is the best food available, but the price could plummet.
Exactly.
It's possible that the foie gras and the toro of the future could cost less than the factory farmed food. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very, very possible.
See, this to me is the mind-blowing nature of technology gains we've made over the past century, or really the last 50 years, I would say, where it's really started to kick in and compound on each other. That people don't realize is that we are on the cusp of such great innovation in science, health, obviously we've seen in hardware, batteries, energy, that the idea of people getting poor because they lose their jobs due to AI, it might turn out that people only require 2 days of work a week in order to afford the food of the future. Because if you succeed with Finless Foods, you might be able to provide people with a protein source that's better tasting than the fish that's available at what, half the price?
That's the hope. I mean, we hope to get our prices down as low as it possibly can. And, theoretically, we'll be using less energy than people would use in order to create the industrial meat that they're producing today. So we're hoping to really make this the big equalizer and make all food affordable. We want this to really be a food justice thing.
See, this is another fascinating sort of thing to get your head around, which is hard to get your head around. It's not just the cost of fish. What you have to realize is there was a ship that had to go out in the ocean and burn oil and pollute the ocean and pollute the air. Then that had to be taken to a processing plant. And yes, there's a bunch of people working in these places, but there's also a lot of downside to those places, which is they tend to burn a lot of energy or oil or coal or whatever it happens to be and pollute. And those are jobs that are just horrible jobs for people to have. Working in a factory, working out on one of those ships, like this is hard, back-breaking labor. It might be better for those jobs to go away and for us to locally produce food that is cheaper, and it may all balance itself out. My guess is that the technology should be able to outstrip the need for wealth. When you think about that, that is truly mind-blowing. What do you think the cost of this fish will be when you start releasing the fish cakes? On par or more? I'd suspect it'd be more expensive.
At first, in 2019, we plan on creating just about price parity with current Bluefin tuna prices. So being at the same price as Bluefin tuna. That said, Bluefin tuna is very expensive. And
that's $20, $30 a pound?
It depends on where you're buying it. Most of the time, Bluefin tuna is between $100 and $1,200 per pound retail.
Oh, I see. We're talking about sashimi grade, like
Bluefin itself, and a lot of times, the cheapest you can find Bluefin tuna, even things that are called Bluefin tuna in San Francisco, in California in general, as far as I've seen, is a little bit over $100 a pound.
Really?
Retail.
Huh.
And but the thing is, I'm not sure all of that actually is Bluefin tuna. A lot of it gets mislabeled. And part of what's hard about figuring out exactly how much this stuff costs is that a lot of fish is sold omakase, especially Bluefin tuna. Omakase meaning like chef's choice, I think, in Japanese.
Yeah, it is.
And okay, cool. Yeah, you eat a lot of fish, so you actually know. But for the listeners, benefit, it's basically you walk into a restaurant, you spend $200, and then the chef gives you a whole set meal of 10 different things. And somewhere in there you get Bluefin tuna. And so it's very hard because the price is sort of disguised. It's very hard to tell exactly how much.
Yeah, if you had to buy it a la carte, it might be much more.
Right. And so it might be much more if you had to buy it a la carte. And so when they sell it a la carte, it's usually the lower quality stuff. It seems like the cheaper restaurants are the ones selling it a la carte. And so in terms of getting this data, when you're looking at a la carte stuff in California, the average is $156 per pound. But that's for things that are a la carte. And the vast majority of Bluefin is sold omakase.
Yeah, it's incredibly expensive for the sushi grade stuff. And when you go to have you been to the Tsukiji fish market in Japan yet?
I was told to go and I totally missed it. I was just there. I was just in Tokyo a few months ago, but I did not go. I know. It was a really brutal conference, but it was really nice.
What you got to do is just stay up all night.
Yeah. Go there 4 a.m. to get in line. You just get on the train
at 5:20, or I suppose now you could take an Uber, but you would take the train from Roppongi at I think it's the first train is 5:20, and you get there at 6-ish. And sushi say, opens at 6, and there'll be people online. So you may have to wait half an hour, but when you walk around, you can't see the fish auctions anymore. They close those to the public, I believe, when they do the tuna.
You have to get like a pass, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But you can walk around certain parts of it. When I went 10 years ago, you could just walk around. It was all the gates were open. You just walk around. I think maybe, but it's extremely, extremely expensive. But is Bluefin tuna what you're going for first in the market?
Yeah, we're looking at bluefin tuna as an ingredient. Why work with a cheaper fish when to us it all costs the same, no matter what fish we're working with. So might as well produce the most high quality thing we possibly can.
Wow. And will it look like bluefin tuna? Will it have that rich red color?
At first, in 2019, it's going to be an unstructured product, and so it will look like raw fish, which is
chopped up fish.
Yeah, chopped up fish, which is generally closer to like a white a lot of the time. But
it will be bluefin in its origin.
Yep, it's from a bluefin tuna. It's from high quality bluefin stock. We've got cell culture going on in our lab of bluefin tuna that we got from a really great source, and we're going to continue doing that. So then in 2021, yes, we do see it really being this structured thing that will really have the look and texture and feel of bluefin tuna.
This company's been backed by venture capitalists, angel investors. How much have you raised? What is it going to take to get this company to, really product market fit, like let's call it? Because this is not the type of company that you can work on nights and weekends and then raise money after you have a product. You kind of need a lot of money, I would suppose, millions of dollars to get this product to market. $5-10 million to get to market. What is the cost going to be?
So we're raising our seed right now. We're raising a total of $3 million. Right now we're at $2 million, just about. And so we're
in that process.
Yeah, we're in the process right now, and so that'll take us to the end of our R&D phase, and then we'll shift into
which is what, 12 months, 18 months?
Yeah, it's we'll raise our Series A near the beginning of 2019, so it's about 15 months or so, and from there we'll raise our Series A, which we will then use to bring ourselves to production by the end of 2019.
Got it. And so you'll need 24 people to do that for a company like this.
Yeah, right now we have 6, and by the end of the year we'll be at 8, and then we plan on keeping our staff of 8 until the Series A, at which point we'll be hiring up considerably more.
It's amazing when you think about it, Mike. You could change the world with a couple $1 million raised.
And a few people.
And just under 10 people.
Yeah.
And this is one of the massive rapid gains in technology. Another one of the rapid gains in technology has been the efficiency of small teams of people. The technology that's out there allows you to get so much leverage per hyper-qualified person. What are you hiring for? What are you looking for? Who do you need to take jobs at Finless Foods to succeed in this mission to save humanity in the oceans?
We're looking for a lot. We're a very.
What are the important positions I'm sort of getting at?
Well, yeah, we're a very interdisciplinary company because this is very much an interdisciplinary field. We need biochemists, we need molecular biologists, cellular biologists, and food chemists, and we also need protein engineers, tissue engineers. So all of these fields together, we need this diverse set of skill sets. But in terms of like who we're looking for, in terms of like a personality, we really need. And have luckily found people who are so motivated to be with us that this is just their life. Like they are obsessed with this. And what's cool about having a company like this, where we have this mission of like creating something that people can see, feel, and taste, and also something that will really have so much impact, we hope, that people are super motivated to be there. Like people are there at our office way early and way late. And I've never asked anyone to do anything like that. I have to encourage people to go home a lot of the time.
That's a great company. When you're kicking people out, you've hired the right people and you're on the right mission.
I agree.
All right, listen, Mike, continued success. We're all rooting for you.
Thanks.
And it really is inspiring to see people taking on projects here in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area, and of course other places that are truly meaningful to humanity. Governments, quite ineffective today. Politicians, loathsome in many cases. And big companies, they're busy protecting their existing product lines. Often they're busy just not losing their jobs and would never take risk. You've got a world of people rooting for you, and you've got some incumbents who are going to try to derail you and shut you down. And that is the truest sign that you are onto something. If you make this work, you have people who are going to be very upset at you.
Definitely.
The fishing company is.
You know, what's really interesting is that so far, it's actually been very positive. A lot of large meat producers, you know, they're protein producers. They're doing the same thing that we are. They want to feed people. They want to make a profit, and they want to, you know, do this in the best way they possibly can. And if they see that there's a profit in what we're doing, they're interested. So I mean,
So Bumblebee Tuna might say, hey, just give us the recipe. We'll make some tuna this way.
they haven't reached out yet, but we're totally open to talking to them. I know that Cargill has invested in Memphis Meats. That's one of the largest meat producers in America. And
how would you look at that? If a Cargill wants to invest in Memphis Meats, that seems to be like letting the fox into the hen house. This is a very bad idea to allow the person you're disrupting to invest in your company. Would you do that? Would you advise that? That seems crazy to me.
I think it's great. I mean,
really?
You know, the meat lobby is so big and so strong that it's either you have to take that on head on or you join them. And if they see that this is profitable and they want to license, partner, invest something, why not? Let's join forces with them. They want to produce protein for people. We want to produce protein for people. We can do it together. And if this is the better way, which we totally believe that it is, you know, the market will bear that out.
Yeah, see, I'm a cynic. I think that they're getting in there to try to figure out how to sue them or stop them. They're looking for that like chink in the armor and saying, okay, we'll get in there, get some information, then we'll figure out how to do a lawsuit or get these people to attack them or whatever.
We're very cautious about that.
I think you got to be very careful. I'd be very careful about, just for the entrepreneurs listening, I would be very careful. There's one thing to have strategic investors. If Whole Foods wants to invest in Finless Foods, no problem, distributor. But a Bumblebee Tuna, I don't know, Chicken of the Sea, who are those people?
Bumblebee Tuna, yeah, they make tuna.
Is that a company or is that part of a bigger thing? Is that part of Procter & Gamble? Is that actually a company?
The company's called like Bumblebee something else,
Got it.
Yeah.
Those Bumblebee people call.
Yeah.
You tell them, lose our number. Because let me tell you something, they get in there, they're going to be like, you know what? If they can make the stuff in a can and it tastes better at half the price and it's better for you and has, you know, and less mercury and all that
Wouldn't they
kind
then
of stuff,
start doing it?
Yeah, but you're going to be so far ahead of them.
That's the hope.
Yeah, they're going to be so far ahead of them. And this is my point. A lot of those places, the people who are running them have been running them for decades. And they're looking and they're like, I've got 8 years of work left in my life. I've got 4 years. I have no motivation to change the world.
Right.
I have a motivation to collect as much money as possible by my retirement. So my incentive is to screw the planet and screw the next generation. And we don't have multi-generational thinking in corporate America. One of the big flaws we have is that these top executives are living on 4-year contracts, 2-year contracts, stock options that go up and down every 3 months. And they're never doing what's great for humanity in the long term. In fact, they will if motivated, they'll do the opposite, which is try to stop progress in order to milk their existing franchises.
Yeah, the system that we've set up is pretty good at eating itself, isn't it? It's sort of like the nature of the game that they've set up. They kind of end up making things harder for themselves in the long run because they're not focused on short-term stuff. I mean, they're not focused on long-term stuff. That said, the people that we've interacted with have been really great and are really excited about this tech. I mean, you can see like Tyson has set up like a fund in order to look into alternative proteins.
Yeah.
Like, they see that this is the future. The New Zealand government has put $150 million in grants towards plant-based and clean meat companies. Israel and China just set up this big trade deal. You know, the world is watching this right now and people are noticing. I sat at a table at a speaker's dinner at a conference a few months ago next to somebody who runs one of the long-term investment funds at a very, very large food producer in America. And obviously he didn't recognize me because, you know, who am I?
Yeah.
But I said who I was. And
he asked you to take his coat.
He said, oh,
Get him a
Finless
martini.
Foods, Brian Wyris, which is my co-founder. And I was like, that's wild that you know who we are.
Wow.
So there's them. I mean, we're talking to large agriculture producers in South America and also in America, it's in the United States. I think the business model of this is pretty clear. I think that, you know, why would they shut us down when they can just work with us on this thing? Because they can make so much money doing this. The margins are better.
I think it's going to be a huge success.
I hope so.
Keep grinding. Quite literally.
Can't stop.
With your impeller.
Yeah.
Don't impale yourself on the impeller. You got to be
Because
careful.
propellers propel, they move you forward, and impellers just swirl things.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I mean, and just be careful. Don't make any replicants or get involved in any engineering. Or once somebody starts talking about making like weaponized stuff. Just
Yeah,
you
I'll
got to
step
get
back,
that person out of the company because it really is a slippery subject. You're like the Weiling Corporation and Prometheus.
If we make anything half as cool looking as Harrison Ford, I think that'll be a pretty big success.
Pretty big success.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, Finless Food, it's the future. Go ahead and follow Finless Foods on your Twitter. Go ahead and visit finlessfoods.com. If you need a job and you care, he's Mike Selden with 2 E's, FF. SELDENFF on the Twitter. I'm guessing he's going to be Mike at Finless Foods. That tends to be how it works. The
It is
CEO
exactly
gets
how it
that.
works.
So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, go work there. If you're a young person, do not go work for the evil empire, for the factory farming people, destroying the planet, thinking short term. Go be part of the Rebel Alliance and solve the biggest problems in the world at Finless Foods. All right. Thanks again, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. Thanks, Jake, Director Jake, putting in a good 2.5 years here. Thank you for your service. And we will see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.